What's happening, all you minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from your home of collected editions, Near Mint Condition. And today, we continue the celebration of the last week of the year by talking about the top 10 reads of 2022. These are the books that I read this year, whether the books actually came out this year or not, but I think most of them did. So, stick with me and find out what books they are. Welcome back, everybody. Now, before I get started on my top 10 reads of 2022, I wanted to do something a little bit different and something that I've been thinking about doing every year, but I never know when the right time would be. But it's just something that I wanted to do, and starting with these segments at the end of the year, and that's to go over a list of wonderful comic-centric creators that we lost in this year alone. And I think about this all the time because my channel, I talk about collected editions and graphic novels and comics, and these people whom without none of this stuff would be here. And it's sad to see so many legends gone this year. So, yeah, no particular order, and man, it's a long list, and it seems like, you know, the older we get, of course, the more we lose, and my childhood is just going away, just looking at some of these names. But Carlos Pacheco, Kevin O'Neill, Kevin Conroy, Greg Bear, Kazuki Takahashi, Neil Adams, George Paedes, Ron Zimmerman, Alan Grant, Tim Sell, Gary Leach, Brian Augustine, Lily Renee, Sho Murase, Kim Jung-gi, Jean-Claude Marizes, Everett Peck, Tom Palmer, Tony Tallarico, Ron Goulart, Ian Kennedy, Michael Luckman, and Jason David Frank. And, you know, some of these people were artists, writers. Some of them had to do with a lot of the behind the scenes or comic book stores. And without these people, my channel wouldn't be here. And it's just, it's sad to see so many names read off and so many legends. So if you ever get a chance to meet your favorite creators, you know, let them know how much they mean to you. I think that is very important. To treat them well while they're still with us. All right. I never know how to follow those things up when I'm talking about something so sad and serious, and I'm like, oh, by the way, here's my top 10 books. But here, in no particular order, are my top 10 reads in graphic novel and collected editions format. And again, I like to remind people that the term graphic novel has changed in the early aughts. Bookstores decided to start marketing on that term, graphic novel. So what you thought of graphic novels in the 80s are a lot different than the term being used now. That's practically the term they use for collected editions. So again, in no particular order, and if you don't mind, a small thing you can do for us is give us a thumbs up. That goes a long way. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, we do put videos out every day. Ringing that bell for notification also helps with our YouTube algorithm, because right now YouTube just seems to be focusing on shorts. All right, in no particular order, I'd love to know what your top 10 are. Leave them down below, but here we go. Boy, I said here we go way too cheery, because the first book I'm going to be talking about is Mazebook by Jeff Lemire, published by Dark Horse Comics. This book gut punched me, man. This was a tough read, and it's a very important read. So Jeff Lemire, I've talked about on my channel. I'm not the biggest fan of his artwork, but I do love his writing. However, his writing is so good that I will read anything he does, despite of how he felt, or I felt about his art. This book, however, the artwork really works for the story that he's telling here. So this is a story about Will, who is a building inspector, and he's been dealing with, and has been dealing with, the loss of his daughter. And his life is falling apart. He has trouble focusing on work. His wife left him and is now with someone else, and he is just alone living the grind. And there's some beautiful moments and sad moments in here. And one of the things that really stuck with me is when he starts remembering his daughter, and he mentions that he's not able to remember her face, and that broke me. Oh man, that one hurt. But as the story progresses, we find out that he is this shell of a person. However, one night he gets a phone call from his daughter, and she's telling him that she's alive and that she is lost in the labyrinth. Now, as flashbacks show us, his daughter was obsessed with puzzles. They used to work on mazes and puzzles, hence the name of the book. So, this is a sad story about acceptance and grief and the courage to just keep moving forward and to see the value in other things that keep us here. And the fight that we struggle with every day, whether you lost somebody or whether you're just fighting it because it's a struggle to get up every day, this reminds us that there is beauty in life and that there are worth things getting up for. And I cannot recommend this book high enough. And that's how I'm going to kick off this list. The artwork that I mentioned earlier is mostly in grayscale with some dashes of color here and there, but it really works. That's what I meant by his artwork really working for this particular story. Or maybe it's just that his art is growing on me, and maybe I'm going to be a huge Jeff Lemire art fan, but oh my gosh, this story, my goodness. Available in hardcover for $29.99. I believe that's the only format available right now in collected editions. I believe there's a trade coming out in 2023. Of course, it's in 5 single issues or in digital printing. And yes, strongly recommend this one. Man, as a father of 2 little girls, this one shook me to the core. Murder Falcon by Daniel Warren Johnson, published by Image Comics. Now, this one is an all-in-one, kind of like Mazebook, and this one's rated teen, kind of like Mazebook. I like to tell people what these are usually rated. And I forgot to mention that when talking about Mazebook. So, the concept of this is really stupid. And I wasn't expecting to fall in love with this book. I love Daniel Warren Johnson's artwork. I'm a big fan of Dead Earth. His Beta Ray Bill comic was amazing and needs the oversized treatment. But I wasn't expecting to also fall in love with this book. Now, the premise of this is about Jake, who is an ex-musician, broken up with his band, and his life is falling apart. Sounds very reminiscent to that of Mazebook, but stay with me. The rest of the world is also falling apart, though, because there are giant kaiju-like, or monsters, creatures that are wreaking havoc everywhere. And enter Murph, the Murder Falcon. So he was sent from the Heavy, so it's this world called the Heavy, to destroy all evil. But he can't do it without Jake's help. So Jake has to take his guitar and shred like he's never shredded before. And every chord Jake hits, Murph gets stronger and can beat the crap out of all of these giant monsters that are just seeking to conquer Earth. Of course, one big entity is behind everything, but that's neither here nor there. He has to get the band back together because each one of his band members can also play a musical instrument that also has a creature from the Heavy that can rock the crap out of these giant monsters. Now, like I said, the concept sounds really silly, but this was so amazing. There is a message here. There's a secret. There's a twist that I didn't see coming. And it's another reminder of how beautiful life is. And I wasn't expecting that from a freaking book called Murder Falcon. So yeah, if you've not read this, just because it's got a ridiculous concept, do not stay away from this. It is freaking awesome. And if you're a fan of like 80s heavy metal, there's a lot of Easter eggs in here. The book is in trade paperback format. I believe that one is $19.99, and then this deluxe hardcover edition for $29.99, and it's all in here. Oh, could not recommend this one high enough. Winds of Numa Sera by Morgan Rosenblum and Johnny Handler. This is published by Dark Horse Comics. There's a bunch of artists that are attached in here. This one, to me, is rated Teen Plus, and it is a fantasy book. Now, it's hard to describe a book by just saying fantasy because there's now so many subgenres. So I would say maybe fantasy / medieval type of stories, kind of like Game of Thrones or Dragon Age if you play the video games, something like that. Oh my gosh, I love this book. I was so surprised by how much I loved it. I could not put it down. It does have Game of Thrones elements in there, but not that many characters. There's mainly 4 characters you're focusing on. And really 3 stories, because 2 of those characters are always together, at least in the first volume. So, yes, first volume, there is going to be more. I hope there's more. But this right here tells the story of this particular empire, the Empire of Numa. Now, the Emperor of Numa has an untimely death, so his 12-year-old daughter, Laila, is now inheriting the throne. And she has to overcome everything that's happened. Of course, there's some twists and turns. There's some betrayals that happen, what really happened to her dad. And she's just one of the characters. She's the childlike empress. That's what I like to call her, mainly because of never-ending story. There's also Kilisandre in here. She is the Baron's daughter from the north. She doesn't want to live the life that her dad has set out for her. Krill, who is a friend of Laila when they're young, but then they kind of grow apart as she becomes more responsible for the kingdom. And he later on becomes a friend with Kilisandre. So that's what I meant by some of the stories intertwining. So these stories are going to come together at some point. There's also Sorja, who is your barbarian / Viking type of hybrid character. Not a lot is known about him, but oh my gosh, I cannot wait to read this in future volumes. I believe this was a Kickstarter, and there's a game too, like an RPG, tabletop game. But I want more of this world, and I want it now. That's how much I could not put it down. Right now, it is only available in this magazine size type of collection. It is a softcover for $24.99. Beautiful colors. The artwork, even though there's so many different artists working on them, on each of these stories, is just so well crafted, and it really fits the tone of the story. And again, the colors really pop out in this one. So I'm recommending this one, The Winds of Numa. The Flinstones by Mark Russell and Steve Pugh, published by DC Comics. I know what you're thinking, the Flintstones, what is that doing at DC Comics? What is that doing on your list? Well, first of all, I did like the Flintstones growing up, even when the Great Gazook was in there, so guilty. But this is so different. This is when DC was doing this experimental phase, bringing in a lot of the Warner Brother characters, the cartoons, and putting them into comic books with a spin. And this one, oh my gosh, this one was so good. I was not expecting this to be that good. I would say this one is definitely teen, just because of some of the subject matters. But what you get in here is you get this beautiful hardcover. This is the deluxe edition for $49.99, by the way. There's 2 trade paperbacks that are available that make up this story too for $17.99 each. So what you get in here is a flip on the old cartoons. You get Fred and Barney, who are war veterans in this particular story with PTSD. You have Wilma, she's an artist in here. You have Pebbles and Bam Bam, and both of them are teenagers, I guess tweens, is that the term? I think that's the term. So you have pretty complex characters. Even the appliances are complex in here. So Fred and Wilma have this strong, loving marriage, and they both depend on each other. I love that about it. I love how they both depend on each other, that there is this leaning on each other when things aren't going the exact way that it should. And that's just the basic layer of this, because there's so much more in here. Now, this works on so many levels because this is a serious commentary on our society, not just American society, but humanity as a whole. And the formation of, like, for example, of Bedrock, you could make an argument that that's kind of like how America was found, if you will. And they're not shy about it, but they're also not in your face about the social commentary. Like I've seen other comics do. It never really reaches that level of preaching or anything, because it's just part of the story. And my goodness, the artwork is so detailed and beautiful. Rick Leonardi does a fill-in issue. And like I mentioned, it just shows the characters, even the artwork shows the characters in a realistic type of style with realistic proportions. So you don't have like the cartoony look to them, but you can still tell that it's them. I guess the wardrobe kind of helps out with that. Now, the big question is, do you need to have read or watched the cartoon, rather, any incarnation, even Flintstone kids, to enjoy this? Not at all. Not one bit. I mean, maybe an understanding that this was a cartoon that was kind of like a mockery of the Honeymooners, but no, not at all. Not to enjoy this book. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin by Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, Tom Walt, Ezao, and Isaac Escorza. So this is published by IDW. This one here is teen, and it's an all-in-one. And so is Flinstones, by the way. I don't know why I didn't mention that. But it's an all-in-one with maybe some continuation happening. I don't know. They've mentioned that there might be some continuing stories in here. So what is this about? What is The Last Ronin about? Well, in a future that has a battle-ravaged New York City, one last turtle survives, and they embark on a journey to get back inside the city and go on one last mission to seek justice for the family that he has lost. So that is the basic premise. He's going back to the city and going up against one final fight against the Foot. But who's in charge of the Foot? And who is this last turtle? Well, one way to find out. I'm trying to be vague as I flip through the book in the video down below. But I've done an overview of this too, and I didn't spoil it, and I'm sure it's everywhere soon. Even videos tell you who the last turtle is. But I think it's a better surprise once you read it. It's so vague about it, like he's wearing a black bandana instead of the traditional red from the comics, or the traditional red, blue, purple, or orange from the cartoon. And that's the cool thing about this book, is that you don't need to read like the IDW incarnation, even though you should, because it's excellent, or the original comics. You can come from anywhere. You can come from the video games, the cartoon, the live-action movies, any incarnation of the comics, whether it's Archie, whether it's the original, whether it's IDW, any incarnation of the cartoon, the 2003, the CG one, in the movies. Because, did I mention the video games too? This is really the bookend to any turtle story. And it is done so well. There are familiar faces that show up through here. And then the mystery of what happened to the last Ronin's brothers. Oh, this is such a good freaking read. Available only in hardcover right now for $29.99, but there is a trade paperback that is coming out in 2023. And again, I think they mentioned that they're going to continue a story set in this world, maybe not with the last Ronin, but perhaps another character. And at this moment, I just want to remind you all to check out our sponsor if you want to pick up any of these books. If you live in Europe and are interested in buying and pre-ordering Omnis, then you should definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices for Marvel and DC books within the EU, flat rate shipping of €12 for all EU countries, bulletproof packaging, and all emails will be answered within 24 hours. They offer a huge selection of out-of-print books. Just head over to waltzcomicshop.com for more great deals and rare titles. And for a limited time, you can use the code nearmintcon, all one word at the checkout, to get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order of over €40. Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for Omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Keeping Two by Jordan Crane, published by Fantagraphics, and it came out in this nice little format. Looks like almost like a diary with the curved edges. It's a cute, small and cute in a demeaning way. I really like the end result of this book. This is a book that apparently was 20 years in the making. And I'm not that familiar with Jordan Crane, but it's also a book that I remember hearing about and looking at the catalog, and it was delayed again after so many years because of everything going on this year with shipments and docks and boats not making it over. It was stuck on a boat, I think, for like 4 or 5 months, but it finally came out, and it did not disappoint. So you have the story of Will and Connie. They are a young couple returning from a road trip. And because the book is not linear, you find out about a minor argument they had, and they make up. Now, Will, when they get back home, checks his phone messages, and he hears about 2 recent deaths, and becomes pretty much fixated on the rule of 3. Now, the rule of 3, of course, is that there's always 3 people that die that you know, or somehow connected to you. He becomes so obsessed with that rule that he starts imagining who will be next. Well, Will and Connie, since they just got home, don't have any food at home, so he makes a deal with Connie that he'll wash the dishes if she goes and gets groceries and picks something up that they can make for dinner. Now, while she's gone, the hours tick by, and Will's mind just starts falling apart, and just imagining these possibilities of what happened to Connie while she was gone. And so much to the point of these fantasies that he starts imagining like what he would be doing without her. How can he live his life without her? There's also a story within a story in here that both Will and Connie are reading about a couple that also are having relationship problems, but a lot worse than they are, and they're on a boat together. So what it does is it blends that current reality of Will and Connie with the couple in the story, and told through some flashbacks and daydreams and of course fantasies and thoughts. So it really is sort of a confusing story, but that's what I like about it, because that's what love is. So to me, this was a brutal, honest portrayal of love in all the mundane stuff, all the irritating and terrifying forms that it comes in. A beautiful read that I realize is weird when I say things out loud about it, but I could not put it down. And again, I stress that I knew I was going to love this book. I know it's weird, before it even was in my hands. Available only in this format for $29.99. I'm assuming in a couple of years they will probably do a soft cover of this. But if anything I said intrigues you, you should definitely check it out while it's still in print. The Many Deaths of Laila Starr by Ram V. and Felipe Andrade and Inés Amaro, published by Boom Comics. Of course, it made it on my list. It made it on so many people's list this year, and it rightly belongs on that list. This one here is Teen Plus because of some of the subject in here. And I swear, I think when I was doing a previews last year when this book came out, I believe it came out in January, but like in 2021, I was talking about there's this book coming out, The Many Deaths of Layla Miller, because I had the character confused with X Factor. But never mind, forget everything I just said. This is a beautiful portrayal of life, and it's done in a very unique way. Immortality is about to be discovered in the human world. So that means that the avatar of death is out of a job. She's going to have to go to the unemployment office. They're done. So what happens is she is cast down to Earth to live a mortal life because she makes a deal with another god, and she ends up living in Mumbai as a 20-something-year-old Laila Starr. That's her human life. So as she descends down here, she, like I said, she made a deal with a god, and she's here at the moment of the birth of the infant that will discover immortality. So her plan is to kill this infant because the infant is the one that put her out of her job, and she can go back to becoming the goddess of death. However, she finds it really difficult to do this. Like, she can't go through with it. And of course, because she learns that through humanity, it's taking a life is not that easy as, I guess, playing a god that takes lives. So she ends up running away, and she gets hit by a bus and dies. Now, of course, she comes back because she made a deal with a god. So she comes back to life, and the rest of the book, without going into heavy spoilers, is about her interactions with Darius. That's the baby that will grow up to just find immortality and discover it for humanity. And it's her interactions with Darius during different stages of his life and her existence. And oh my gosh, this book was amazing. I could not put it down. The distorted artwork by Felipe Andrade is not for everybody, but I love it. I love his rubbery bodies, the cool settings, Mumbai itself just looking so crowded. The colors by Inés Amaro just help out a ton. And this is a book, while talking about immortality and death, it really does make you question your own life and existence, and shows what life really is and how fast it fades away while we ponder on about what's the meaning of life. Oh man, what a great book. Available only in trade paperback right now for $19.99. And there is a deluxe edition that's coming out next year. I believe it's in March for $29.99. And I'm a fan of Felipe's artwork. I love his art. Like I said, it's not for everybody, but my goodness, to me, he can carry a story and deliver. So I think his art really belongs in the oversized format, so I will be picking it up. That deluxe edition is $29.99. Barbaric Volume 1 by Michael Moresi and Nathan Gooden, published by Vault Comics. Mature content. And it is a Volume 1, so it continues. We've talked about a lot of depressing books so far on this segment, so let's have some fun. Let's bring it back to the fun of what comics are, and Barbaric, my goodness, does everything right. So this book is, just like I mentioned, the first volume, and it is a little bit of a slow start. It's the only one on here that I remember thinking, this book's okay, but I'm going to go through with it, and I'm glad I did. So this book is about a barbarian named Owen, and Owen is cursed by a trio of witches that, in order to make amends with his horrible past, he has to help people out. And the curse is he has to help anyone out who asks, no matter who they are, as long as the person asking is a good person. Which means that Owen gets to kill the crap out of a lot of monsters and villains in here. And he's armed with his sentient axe. That's right. His axe can talk. As a matter of fact, his axe is kind of like, hey, this person is good. So at the very beginning, you see him in a Coliseum, and one of the guys is like, Barbarian, kill them all. And he's like, well, I can kill these two guys, because, they're murderers. But I can't kill that guy because all he did was steal money from his family, and that's not really that horrible of a person. So it's those type of stories. Dude, I laughed in this book a couple times. Like, it's very hard for me to crack up at books, but some of the jokes just landed in here. And it is very mature, so you're going to see a lot of sexual content in here, violence, over-the-top violence, and just a lot of fun. I cannot wait to read more of his adventures. And the artwork, oh my gosh, the artwork is so stunning. The colors really pop out. It gives it that barbarian feel. Like, I think the reason I enjoyed it so much is because, okay, I read, of course, Conan the Barbarian, and I've read these stories before, but this was so different than Conan. I promise you'll end up like, especially if you're a fan of Conan the Barbarian. It's very, very comical. So, the book is only available in hardcover format for $19.99. There's going to be a future volume, and Vault did tell me that once it's all done, they might make a omnibus edition of it, an oversized omnibus edition of it, which makes me really happy. Amazing Fantasy by Carrie Andrews, published by Marvel Comics. Let's keep the fun going. This is an all-in-one, and it is for all ages. I think this is the only book in this list that is for all ages. And it is Amazing Fantasy, but not the formula of Amazing Fantasy like here's Spider-Man, but the formula of the science and fantasy aspect of that anthology series that predates Spider-Man showing up in number 15. So the story here is about a specific era of Captain America, Spider-Man, and Black Widow. And they are snatched from earlier points in their life. So you have a teenage Spider-Man, a Black Widow that's going through training at a spy school, and a World War II Captain America. And they're all thrown into this island of darkness and fantasy. One could say amazing fantasy. Now, what does that mean? Are they dreaming? Were they kidnapped by a supervillain and they are living this perfect life on this fantasy? Are they dead? Or have they really been grabbed from different points in their life to be thrown into this island? And will they remember who they are and how they get back home? Oh man, this one was a huge surprise for me. This is a love letter to the Marvel era, just reinvesting on the seminal characters that you love and just being plucked from their quintessential timelines. This is one that I think a lot of people will enjoy, that I think a lot of people slept on. There is a beautiful Treasury edition for $29.99 in 2023. As a matter of fact, here in a week or so, there's going to be a trade paperback edition of this for $15.99 that will collect everything that's in here, but will be the trim size of a comic book, so trade paperback. But the Treasury edition is the way to go. This thing is beautiful, oversized, the paper stock, and Carrie Andrews, who has this amazing talent that can just change his art style up. His art has never looked better than in this format, so 100% recommending this read. Berserk 41 by Kentaro Miura, published by Dark Horse Comics. It had to be on this list. I knew the day would come that I would have to read Miura's final volume of Berserk. That I would have to read Guts' final adventure. It wasn't an ending that I was hoping to get, because Miura wasn't supposed to die that young. He was supposed to finish this story. This long story that people have been reading for 30 years. For myself, I've been reading since 1990. Well, I've been on this journey since 1998, and then when the manga came out in America in 2003. So it's been a long time, almost 20 years for me, reading it. And losing him just, it really opened my eyes that, once an artist and writer, once they're gone, yes, the story will continue, but it won't be the same. Now, we do know that Koji Mori will be taking over his friend as the writer and artist, and I know some of those chapters are already available in Japan, and this is normally when I do the Street Fighter Japan thing, but this is Berserk. Respect. So, it's just different. I mentioned on my channel before, like especially with the Thank You Miura video we did, that it will feel like I'm hanging out with my friend or somebody wearing my friend's clothes, rather. So it doesn't feel the same. So how did this end? I'm not going to go into spoilers. I'm showing a little bit of this artwork. And this right here is the ending to my favorite manga after 30 years of publication. And how did it end? No other way Berserk can end. Filled with sadness, joy, laughter, fantasy, violence. The best damn way to possibly remind us that the struggle never ends and we got to pick ourselves up and keep moving forward. That the battle will never end. So, to me, it ended the way that I thought it was going to end, but not quite the journey that took us there. So thank you, Miura. Now, this particular story will be available in deluxe edition with volume 14, and nobody has made a statement as to whether it will include Mori's stories in there, because they usually do 3 tankobons in one deluxe edition. So volume 14 of the deluxe edition would have 40, 41, and 42. But no word yet. I don't know if it will have like Miura's artwork, additional artwork, or what exactly will be collected in there. But yes, I will keep reading it, of course. It is Guts, it's Casca, it's my favorite story. How are they going to end up? What's going to happen to Bento and Griffith and the God Hand? But it's just different. It's just different. So I think that's why I had to have it on the list. Now, if you're interested in purchasing some of these books and you live in America, check out our sponsor. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And those were my top 10 favorite reads of 2022. Let me know in the comments down below what your top 10 books you read this year were, whether they came out this year or whether they came out many years ago, but this is your first time reading it this year. What your goals are for 2023. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, for joining me on this journey. Still got a couple of days to celebrate 2022. Tomorrow will be the upcoming collected editions for January, and then of course our Saturday live stream on Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be celebrating the new year. So thank you all so much for watching, for being a part of this channel. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.